Opening up the mailbag for questions about Jordan Walsh, Marcus Smart's potential return, Joe Mazzulla's rotations, and a whole lot more right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Yup. Beantown, be ever ready. It's the C's. Who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT Karalis. Recap the madness every game, every practice. Prime time, Depp and D White on the sideline. Raining Jays, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Your team is the Boston Celtics, and I talk about them Monday through Friday for free right here on whichever podcasting app you decide to use. This show is on all of them. It's on YouTube. Get into the comment section, share your thoughts there with other Celtics fans and with me, John Karalis, beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. Been doing version of this job for like 20 years now. And I've written a couple of books, been podcasting about them forever. I've been around the team for a long time. Today's show is a mailbag episode. Later on, we're going to get into the second apron impact around the league, specifically OKC. Marcus Smart, is there potential for his return to Boston? Questions about the Celtics front court coming up in the second segment. Joe Mazzulla. But let's start with a question about Jordan Walsh, which comes from Ira. Says, in all of the speculations about possible contributors, why have you not mentioned Jordan Walsh? I thought he showed flashes of playability last year. And granted, I think this question came in a little bit before Summer League, where I've been clear on the last couple of podcasts. I've been disappointed with him in Summer League. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying he's done. I have said I'm kind of like, I'm definitely at my lowest point with Jordan Walsh, but I understand that Summer League is a different animal. Players have looked bad in Summer League. Sam Hauser looked horrible in Summer League. I was ready to move on from him. So it's very easy to have strong reactions to Summer League, especially when a guy struggles. I've said before, struggling in Summer League is more meaningful to me than success, because every decent player is supposed to have success. And Jordan has had some. I think the struggles with speed of play, I didn't like the fact that he got thrown out and how he got thrown out. I just don't like how he has been scoring his points. I just feel like he's a better athlete than a lot of these guys. And I haven't seen the type of play that makes me think like, oh God, okay, he's mastered the change of speed. He's mastered the little nuance of finishing around the rim. I haven't seen that, but he's also 21. So I'm not saying that he's never going to do it. He could possibly do it, but is he ready to be a contributor this year? That's going to be tough. My hope for him is that he once again takes the Summer League performance, goes home, chews on it, comes into camp and kind of fixes some of those things. I'm not completely out on Jordan Walsh yet, but like I said, I'm at the party, I'm looking at my watch, and I'm thinking like, might be time to leave this party soon. That's where I am with him. Now, he could easily turn things around, but he needs to be more consistent with his shot. He needs to be smarter with how he drives, rather than just relying on his speed and athleticism to try to get by guys, which I've seen the same thing out of him for 3 years now. This is the third year. I have not seen major steps forward. So that's where I'm struggling with this. Maybe that changes, but this is kind of like he's under contract. It's not even a fully guaranteed contract. I feel like if he can't get it by trade deadline, then he can go somewhere else and maybe find it. People have thrown Aaron Nesmith at me and like, yeah, okay. But no one was crying about Aaron Nesmith leaving when he left. And it was part of the Malcolm Brogdon trade. It made sense. And the change of scenery worked. maybe the Celtics are in a position where they can keep Jordan around for another year beyond this, but I don't think they're going to re-sign him. Like he's I think done at the end of the season, no matter what. So, well, I shouldn't say no matter what, unless he shows a marked improvement or the potential for significant improvement. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that I'm wrong about this. I hope that we can look back on this and say this was an overreaction. I listen, I never root for the demise of a player, but I'm not going to lie about what I think about a player either. So I like Jordan Walsh. I think he's a good kid. I think he's working hard. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing negative about him. And he's a guy that you want to keep around the team because he's just a good, hard worker. But this is a cold, hard business, and you got to perform. And if he's not performing, and this is where I have my question marks, then I don't see him as a contributor next year. William says, what do you think is going to be Joe Mazzulla's biggest struggle concerning rotations this season? Who do you think will have the breakout season? Well, breakout season is going to be tough, right? So let's work backwards on that. You could qualify Jaylen as a breakout season, even at this point, if he thrives as a number one option. But I think that's just trying to be too, I don't think that qualifies. Can Sam have a breakout season? I think like Sam and Peyton have already broken out. Like all of these guys have broken out. So that leaves like Baylor Shireman as a breakout kind of player. So I'm going to go with him just because this is his chance to throw, a few things out there and be a contributor, where last year he was kind of on the fringe and mostly garbage time. So that's where I go with that. But what is Joe's biggest challenge? His struggle? I think it's going to just be finding the guys that complement Jaylen and Derek and what combinations to use. If you listened last week, it was towards the end of the podcast with Tom, where I think you have to start Peyton Pritchard on the bench. And this is one of the questions, right? Every time I say Peyton Pritchard is a potential starter, there's a segment of Celtics fandom that's like, no, you can, what do you mean starter? I think he has to come off the bench just so he can come in for Derek White, and then Derek can come in for Jaylen, and you're going to have long stretches. So you have the first 4 or 5 minutes of the first quarter where Jaylen and Derek are going to be on the floor together, and the last 5 minutes of the second quarter. So first 5 minutes of the half, last 5 minutes of the half, and it's all staggered in between. So that's how it's going to be for both halves. What combinations of guys do you put around Jaylen, and what combinations do you put around Derek to maximize each guy's strengths? That's going to be the challenge. What big do you put in there with Jaylen to run the pick and roll? What big do you put in there with Derek White to run the pick and roll? Different styles, different, Derek has the floater, right? He's more of a shooter. Jaylen is more of a downhill guy. And so who's going to be more of the lob threat? Who's going to be an outlet for him? So it's just that little kind of formula is going to be the toughest thing for Joe to find out. He's going to have to go back and forth and try to just who's on the floor. Is it Shireman? Is it how far does Pritchard and Jaylen go? How long can you play Pritchard and White next to each other? Is that enough size? How do you switch that up against bigger teams? So that kind of stuff is going to be Joe's biggest challenge. When we come back, Nemish Keita, JD Davidson, their questions, and then front court and Marcus Smart. That's all coming up when I come back. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. We've all had our moments where you go, I thought I had more money than this, or things are starting to get a little bit tight. And maybe some of that is just circumstance. Maybe some of that is your own fault. I know I've been in that boat. Monarch Money can help put you in the driver's seat and kind of be your own personal CFO, so you have full visibility and control over your finances. It's not just the budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center that tracks your accounts, either for you alone or for you and a partner, investments, all your spending in one place. So you're not just managing money, you're building wealth. You can track your spending and find out maybe some surprising things. I know that, look, sometimes if I'm just playing on my phone, I go, oh, this is only $2.99. Let me buy that. And you start piling that up. You're like, oh, I didn't realize I spent $50 on this game this month. That's pretty stupid. And so you kind of, those type of things. You're getting too much food delivered. Are you eating out too much? You don't realize some of that stuff. So everything is in one app. It's easier to manage your money. And so if you want to take full control, you can do it with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Check out Locked On NBA, Locked On NBA Game Night, 2 podcasts on the same feed. So Locked On NBA Game Night, all the big stories from Summer League. Locked On NBA, all the big stories from around the NBA. Lots of still trade rumors, potential signings, all of that stuff. So 2 different podcasts on the Locked On NBA feed. Make Locked On Celtics your first listen and then go over to them and you get your full NBA covered on Locked On. Let's move on to Casey, who asked, what kind of role do you see for Neemias Queta and JD Davidson playing this season? JD had very limited minutes, but was the G League MVP, and Nene had more regular season minutes, but was a no-show during the playoffs. So JD, it's great that he was MVP. Can anybody name, without Googling, the last 3 MVPs of the G League? I couldn't. I had to Google. But can you name them? Before JD Davidson, Mac McClung. Mac McClung is not in the league. He's just not. He's not an NBA player yet. Carlik Jones, Trevlin Queen. We remember Trevlin Queen because he kind of burned the Celtics once, but he's not exactly making big waves. The biggest names for G League MVP were Paul Reed a few years ago and Chris Boucher. So 2 guys out of the last 6 that are serviceable NBA players, right? So I'm not holding the fact that JD won G League MVP in the highest of regard. I think he's in a lot of ways like Jordan Walsh, where nice player. I've said this before. To be the best player in the G League still means you're one of the best basketball players in the world. You know, the top, you're in the top like 0.5% of basketball players when you consider that compared to the entire population or everybody who plays basketball. But I don't see a role for JD Davidson. Neemias Queta, he has work to do. I think Queta has nice, big, kind of showy moments. He's a big guy, so he has like big dunks. He has big blocks. You can see when he's playing really well. But also, he's not exactly the most mobile. People talk about him as super athletic, and I disagree. I don't understand. I do not evaluate him as a super athlete. He had to dip the ball real low to jump. Like, he doesn't just get the ball and go up and get tip dunks. He gets it, dips the ball real low, and then goes back up because he has to get all of that momentum. Going straight back up is tough for him. He doesn't have a strong second jump. He doesn't change speeds very well. He can go side to side, so he's got kind of like these weird quick feet that get him laterally pretty decent, but north-south, he's not great at a change of direction there. So I think that he's fine in a third center, kind of like, okay, eat up some minutes here and there against the right matchups, but that's it. I'm not high on Queta. I'm definitely not high on Davidson. I just don't see it. So But again, look, I would love to be wrong about this stuff, and I will be, on some players. I'd rather be wrong on this end. I'd rather say a guy's not going to do well than have him do well. But look, Davidson, if you're not cracking an NBA rotation by now, this long into the league, it's hard. It's hard for me to think that you're suddenly going to be like, he figured it out. It's possible, but it's not likely. So I don't see big roles. I don't see a role much at all for Davidson. I see more of a role for Keita, but I'm not starting him. He's not my second string center. He's my 3rd/4th string center. Andrew, on a related note, says the Celtics front court desperately needs help, but what kind of a big would fit best around the Jays? Derek White and Pritchard, a rebounding dribble handoff guy like Sabonis, an athletic jumper like Time Lord, a bruising pick setter like Steven Adams. You can make a case for a lot of those guys. I think I want a passing kind of facilitator. So more of a Sabonis. I want a guy that probably doesn't require a lot of a lot of touches, but can make the most out of the touches that he gets. So rebounding, offensive rebounding, facilitating, good passing, that type of guy. When you have strong wings, strong perimeter players, you want a rim protector. Look, if Sabonis has obviously defensive weaknesses, makes a lot of money, too much money. But Sabonis is a guy that, I like him. I actually think that he'd be pretty good. It's just that when it comes playoff time, it doesn't work playoff wise. So you can't build your team around him. He needs to be a better defender, a stronger defender. If you can find that in him, but at this point, I don't think you're finding that. But I like pick setting, rebounding, facilitating. He's one of your better regular season centers. It's just that playoff time, it's a problem. Steven Adams is a real interesting guy, but he's definitely a hack, kind of at some point having him on the floor, because if his free throw shooting, it's a problem. The Time Lord, a healthy version of him is great because he was a great passer. I just want somebody that does those little things. So whatever kind of big you get has to be able to set a screen, make a pass, and defend. That's it. I don't need a shooter, although a floor spreader would be great. A floor spacer would be great, but somebody who just does those little things. Like Luke Cornett was effective because he did the little things. He didn't hold the ball. He just got it and when he touched it, it went out of his hands quickly, made a play with it. I have the ball. I should not have the ball. Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, those guys should have the ball. That's what you need. So I don't need a scorer. I don't need a guy that's going to try to create off the dribble. So a guy like Sabonis with just a touch more defense, you can dial the other stuff back, but give me some rim protection. So, but dribble handoffs, all that stuff is going to be important. Marcus Smart, subject of a couple of questions. One from Patrick, who says, "What's your opinion of a potential Marcus Smart return?" I don't think we get the old Smart back, but after everything that happened. David says, "When you look at the contracts of Anthony Simons and Marcus Smart, they're both 1-year deals, and Smart makes a fair amount less. Seeing as the goal is to save money, would you like to see it?" And so, okay, Marcus Smart coming back, I just don't see it happening. I don't think coming back to Boston as a shell of himself, as in a lesser role. Maybe it's an emotional thing. I mean, I can see them trading for Smart and then turning around and trading him away for less, as part of that kind of constant flip down salary wise. I'm a huge Marcus Smart guy. I love Marcus. I don't want to see a return. I just, at this point, it's done. I don't think he fits Joe Mazzulla's style anymore. I don't think that's going to work. So as much as I really like Marcus Smart and I really think that defensive intensity can be helpful, this is not going to be a good defensive team. And Marcus, even at his best, isn't going to change a whole lot. You need front court rim protection. So that I'd rather find somebody that does that than Marcus. If you're trading Anthony Simons, and this hurts me. You can tell there's like pain in my voice because I like Marcus Smart. I think he's a great guy. I know we have a propensity for, hey, what about this guy that we know? People want to say, bring back this guy, bring back that guy. What's done is done. And I'm moving on from Marcus. Here's another one. I'll do this when we come back. Another blast from the past and big name that somebody is asking for back. People are at 2 names. I'm looking at this 2 names. And then we'll get to second apron, OKC, and all of that stuff when I come back. All right, let's get back to this mailbag here. Wait, nope. Well, somebody V, sorry. Since it says, I didn't copy over your first name, I apologize. Since it appears that this season's going to be a soft tank, why not bring back Isaiah Thomas? It would be fun for fans. Like it would be, and I advocated for him coming back a couple of seasons ago. But again, like, what does that do? What does that get you? Garbage time, sure. Garbage time, Isaiah Thomas. It'd be fun, but I'm not going to push for the Celtics to spend money on Isaiah Thomas. Moving on from a player like at this point, I'd rather see them sign a guy who got cut and send him to the G League in that role. Under the second apron, I hate to say it, but these sentimental roster spots, very difficult. You can't really do that. And that goes to this next question from Mikhail from the Philippines, who asked, do you see Al Horford returning on a Udonis Haslem type role down the road? No, not really. I think if he was going to come back, he's going to come back, and he's not coming back. It's obvious. Brad Stevens has spoken about him in the past tense, so it's obvious he's not coming back. He's going to go to either Golden State or somewhere else, or he's going to retire. And that's it. If he comes back to Boston, maybe in an advisory role, maybe in a coaching type of situation or something like that. But it's not going to be in a Udonis Haslem kind of way. All right, let's wrap this up on some NBA second apron talk. Starting with Nick, who says the Sun based their Booker signing on cap projections, right? If that's the case, isn't it possible we've been thinking about the Jays contracts all wrong? Consensus is the Jays need to break up within a few years, but knowing players are going to be making 75 plus per year, cap projections range from 180 to 200 million. I'm starting to feel some hope that we'll be one of the few teams to maintain a supermax core. Am I crazy? So the Suns gave Booker 75 million a year or somewhere around that money because I think it's 72.5 because they want to keep Devin Booker, and they completely screwed up their cap with the KD and the oh my God, I totally drew a blank on the I love it when my brain stops working because I can see him and I know he's Jayson Tatum's best friend, but my mind just completely shut down to a point where you ever have a moment where the obvious name is right there and you're all, I can hear you screaming at me. How can you forget his name? But it just left my Bradley Beal. I didn't even look that up. I didn't even look it up. It just popped in my head. Honestly, like, the name. I knew the name. How does the name Bradley Beal, I'm looking at his face in my mind. How did that name not get? Yeesh. So they screwed it up with the Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant moves. They decided to give Booker this incredible extension. So as far as the Celtics go, the cap has been going up 10%. And it continues. It will probably continue for a couple of years. Tatum's extension is going to kick in. I think it's actually started to kick in already. In a couple of years, both guys are going to be making over $60 million. It's just, you can do it with two Supermax guys. It's just, you couldn't do it with two Supermax guys, two guys making over 30 million, another guy making over 20 million. Like that's where it starts to get expensive. You can do it, but you can't do it with a million guys. And you can do it, and you'll have to still be a taxpayer. So just to clear up why people are saying Tatum and Brown are going to have to get broken up at some point. Well, first of all, at some point you're going to have to rebuild. At some point that's going to happen, right? You're just not going to, you're going to have to bottom out. You're going to have to start looking at going for top picks, right? You're going to have to start moving these guys in their early 30s. Even if you roll for the next few years, you're going to have to maximize when you trade these guys so you can get a bunch of picks. You're going to have to send these out to, I don't know, like OKC or somebody, the Indiana type teams in the world, the almost their teams that are going to give you a bunch of draft picks. That are going to give you young players. And it's coming. The guys aren't going to finish their careers on the same team anymore. It's just how it goes. So Jaylen Brown will finish his career somewhere else. And I think Jayson Tatum will finish his career somewhere else. I hate to say it, but that's the reality. At some point you have to bottom out. But they can keep Tatum and Brown for the next few years if they're willing to pay that tax. But if they're going to want to get underneath the tax, then at some point you're going to have to really reevaluate the structure of this team. So you can stay under the second apron with your two max players, super max players, but there's a limit to that. So that's where all of that comes from. And finally, Matt says there's a lot of talk of the second apron coming for every team. Doesn't OKC seem kind of second apron proof? They can potentially keep re-signing their players if willing to pay a ridiculous tax bill. Then with how many draft picks they own, they could use a lot of those to trade further out in the years that their picks would be frozen at the bottom of the draft. So it's an interesting, like you could say, hey, whatever, we don't care if our pick's down at 30, even if things bottom out, because we've got picks from all these teams and those are going to be bad. But you also want to control your destiny. So when it comes time to be bad, you want to be able to be bad and control where your pick lands. So you can't just say, we have this Phoenix pick and this Philly pick and this pick there and that pick there from these other teams, and that will shield us. But they are, in a sense, more insulated from the second apron because of those draft picks, because they can make those picks and hope that they can hit. They can start. So they just gave a bunch of contracts. They gave out Chet Holmgren. They gave out Jaylen Williams. I think they gave out one more. But, I'm thinking of maybe the Shai Gilders Alexander extension, which starts at $63.7 million in 2 seasons. So this upcoming season, they're fine. Next season, 26-27, they're going to have problems because they're going to be at $245 million, which is going to be well over the second apron. And they're going to have to think about, do we want to be here? And maybe they do for a year. They can keep Hartenstein. They can keep Lou Dort. They can keep a few of these other guys. But this is why on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast, I was talking about Nikola Topic, who has looked good and could be a guy that in a couple of years they turn to for, to fill a cheap role, because they have him under contract on team options for 2 more seasons upcoming season. So he's a guy that can help them withstand the second apron. They're going to lose Hartenstein at some point. They're going to lose Dort. They're probably going to lose Caruso, but their draft picks are going to be there. They can probably try to start drafting some of these replacements. So the second apron is going to come for them. They are going to have to start moving guys. Like I said, those guys that I mentioned, maybe at some point, Jaylen Williams or Chet is going to have to go, and they're going to have to figure out which one of those two is easier to keep, because in 27-28, so you got next season, the season after that, and then 3 seasons, then you're going to have a bunch of open roster spots. Shea at 63, Chet at 45 almost, Jaylen Williams at 45 almost. So that's what, 140, 150, 154, 155 just in 3 players with a lot of open roster spots a year after we went into the second apron. So that's going to be another second apron year. Second apron, too restrictive. You can't make trades. You can't make, it's much more difficult. And a small market team like OKC, they're not going to want to pay massive luxury taxes. So they haven't been a taxpayer. That's a situation that's much different than Boston. Boston was a repeater. OKC is not yet. They're just going to get into the tax for the first time next year. So they'll have like 2-3 seasons. And then, so that third season at 27-28, the year after that, the repeater tax will kick in. They're not going to want to pay that, not in OKC. So that's going to be, I think, where they draw the line. What insulates OKC is the draft picks, and hopefully for them, the draft picks hitting, and you'll have Shea and Chet and 2 guys on rookie contracts and, some guys on smaller deals. And those are the types of deals that are going to be, I think, what get you through and can keep more of your core intact through those tough second apron years. That's where OKC seems second apron proof, but no team is fully second apron proof. They're going to have to pay, and they're not a big enough team. They don't bring in enough money where they're going to be able to withstand some of these restrictions. So I think it's gonna come for them in a similar way that it comes for everybody else. And they're just hoping that some of those draft picks hit, or they can turn around and make some trades and redo their roster to bring in cheaper guys who can do the same things. We'll see how it goes there. Thank you for the questions. All the questions can come in at johnkaralis.com/mailbag, johnkaralis.com/mailbag for questions. This is the Wednesday show. I'll be back for another show. We got Monday through Friday this week, next week, week after. So that gets us through the end of July. Then August, September, we're 3 days a week. So that's going to be the schedule. You everydayers who are with me all the time, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen. Thank you for getting into the YouTube page, getting into the comment section, sharing your thoughts there, and then sharing the podcast, telling everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.